statutes that will meet the ever-changing needs and demands of the society those laws are to serve.
But common sense, sir, you taught me yourself. A child of 14 cannot wear the same clothes at the age of 40. Our laws and our institutions grow as we grow as a people. Mr. Whit, as I've been able to make my way here successfully, though I beg pardon, I have failed to take off my riding boots. I know that's rather ungentlemanly and impolite, but
What I'm concerned is I'm still wearing apparel that I would have worn 14 years ago.
I understand.
Including a hat and wig. May I become more contemporary in the year of 1800 with your permission?
There we are. And Mr. Whit, lest you fear or are concerned dressing for your own comfort, gaze upon those about us here this day. I've always believed in dressing for comfort, but you overwhelm me. And I dare say now the two of us are more formally attired, are we not? But upon this subject of fashion and style, I hope some of you have read what I have written. In matters of style, simply swim with the current. But in matters of principle, stand like a rock. Yeah. I would desire from the people, if you will accept as well, Mr. Whit.
I would indeed. Our time is limited today. Let us make best use of it. If you have queries or comments, now would be the time to put them forth. Brief admonition, if you do not engage in lively conversation, we will ramble on, so be careful what you wish for. Yes?
Okay, if you say people are free and have rights, how come the people that you guys own don't?
Question has to do with those who are enslaved within our society. How can we declare we have rights and deny those rights to others?
Well, I thank you, Mr. Whit, for allowing me to proffer an answer firstly, but I ask you, sir, are you of the age 21 years?
I'm 20, yes.
You are 21 years? Where do you reside? Where do you live?
I live in Brookville, Maryland.
You live in Maryland, sir?
Yes,
So you are familiar
yes,
with our inheritance.
yes,
Yours, no less than mine,
okay.
our nation's inheritance.
Okay, but how come,
I do not know this term, okay. I have no idea. I worry about what you may be saying in replying to me. So I'm just, if you will, a caution a moment. And that is, I will not deny, will you, Mr. Whit? I know if Colonel Henry were here, he would agree as well, His Excellency General Washington, that we are often the ones most chastised.
okay.
And yet are we not more often the ones who have spoken out in opposition upon what we know in our heart and our conscience is indeed an injustice unto man? And who would know better than one who has inherited slaves, sir? Perhaps you yourself, your society certainly, your nation. Now then, sir, simply because that has been a habit, a custom for several generations, and has found its way now still in our laws, in our Constitution, I ask you, sir, does that mean it ought to continue? And secondly, how do we end it? Within but a few moments. Your answer.
Okay, I think you should end it. And do you go into a store and say, oh, look, I see that person in the window. I want to buy that one. Do you do that?
No, I do not do that.
Exactly. They need to have freedom and rights too, just like you guys do.
Every single thing I have ever purported, and Mr. Whit has purported, and General Washington has purported, former Governor Henry has purported, Mr. Madison, many, many others, sir. We are arguing on that behalf, and yet, how do we end it? Amiably, sir, without bloodshed, without extensive corruption. Mind you, you're standing right here before a building in which was introduced in June of 1779 126 revisals of the monarchical code under which we were born and grew up. Bill 82, perhaps you're familiar, the bill for religious freedom. Bill 21 to end primogeniture and entail, so that yourself as a younger son might inherit equally with your brothers, without the opposition that your elder brother inherited entirely. Bill 79 for education. But my point, sir, Bill 51 to end the importation of slaves to Virginia. That's a beginning.
Then how come, if they're here, then why don't you give them freedom and rights like you guys?
Sir, may I finish?
Sure, go right ahead.
I dare say we have a Federalist right here intending
I
to
got all
contend
day.
with us all together.
And when you finish with him, I have a few
You're
thoughts
ready
as
yourself.
well.
Very
I got
good.
all day.
Sir, Which of the forementioned bills, 82 for religious freedom, 79 for education, 21 ending primogeniture and entail, 51 to end slavery to the shores of Virginia, not end the practice, that will come in time once we end the abomination. And I was first and foremost standing in that favor when I was elected to the House of Burgesses, 26 years of age, to start, to have a beginning. Which of the four do you think was the first to be made law?
I don't know.
Primogeniture and entail, sir, allowing you as the youngest son to inherit directly, that you then may make a decision yourself whether you inherit your father's people.
Okay, you want to know
Which
my
do you,
decision?
sir, please. Let us remember, did you hear Mr. Witt talk
Yeah, I
about
heard him.
civility
But you
and
wanna know my
argument and
decision?
debate?
If I inherited people, I'd let them go free and have rights.
Thank you, sir. May I continue?
Yes, go right ahead.
This is the civility we're talking about in proper, mannered form of argument and debate. You would never want this to get out of hand, now would you?
Wouldn't bother me.
Yeah, wouldn't bother you.
Nope.
Who must be the judge?
May I
If you allow it. Now, let me continue. Sir, which do you think was the second of the four to be rectified? Ending the importation of slaves to Virginia. 17 and 83, sir.
Okay.
We were the first, below the line drawn by Mason and Dixon. Let us hope Maryland will follow.
Okay.
And let me be very specific. The accusation that no attempts have been made are false, very much upon their face. For we here in Virginia attempted to do away with slavery, with our own Declaration of Rights. We were forced to interject a fragment of a sentence, not enough to stand with on its own grammatically, into our opening section declaring that all mankind was inherently born free and equal. And we were forced by compromise to insert the phrase, when they enter into a state of society. So we were guilty in 76 of not being able to bring an end to this infamous act. We attempted to do the same with the most poetic phrasing that took place in our Declaration of Independence, an anti-slavery clause which would have accomplished precisely what you were talking about, and that should never have occurred had there not been men of common thought. However, it was the Carolinians who threatened to desert Congress, greatly weakening our position. We no longer would have been 13 unified colonies with a common cause. We had been as divided and as fractured as any enemy could hope their opposition to be. And then, finally, the opportunity to accomplish precisely what you yourself stated you wished to do. The reason more did not, such as myself, free those slaves that came to us by way of inheritance and marriage was that the law forbade it.
Did you fight the
But
law?
once we had the ability to manumit our slaves, of the 44 that I inherited and gained through marriage, I have to date freed and manumitted every one of them because the law has finally allowed me to do so. Now, perhaps my feelings on this abhorrent nature of this practice, I would like to think, come from simply being an enlightened individual in this new age of reason. But perhaps in my case there is another cause. For in 1693, a pamphlet was published upon this continent entitled An Admonition and Caution on the Buying and Keeping of Negroes. It is the first known anti-slavery statement published anywhere on this continent. And it was published by the Reverend George Keith. Any of you know that name? Well, the Reverend George Keith was a somewhat fiery Quaker. All right, I know those two words don't go together, but a somewhat fiery Quaker minister who found himself greatly at odds with the Society of Friends on a great many issues, not the least of which was the issue of slavery. Well, the Reverend George Keith was my maternal great-grandfather. So perhaps my feelings on this issue come by way of bloodline, not just enlightenment. Let us now move on. Yes?